Let's get down to business to review Mulan. Mulan. So Mulan tells a story about a young woman who volunteers for her father to fight in a war against the Rorans since her father is kinda old. So she pretends to be a man so she can fight. This movie doesn't have any of the songs except for a rendition of Reflection in the credits. It also doesn't have Mushu or any of the ancestors, but most importantly, no Grandma Fa! No! Now, I was very excited for this movie since Mulan has always been a part of my childhood. I enjoyed the original movie, and I attempted to learn Mandarin on a website called Mulan Ting, where Mulan would teach us Mandarin.
That seems a little too quick.
So naturally, I was very excited for this remake. It is PG-13 rather than PG since it has a lot more battle sequences and it focuses more on those scenes and feels more influenced by the Chinese wuxia genre. With the battle scenes, I guess they're cool to look at. The cinematography in some of the battle scenes are stunning. Some of the shots are breathtaking. One of the shots I was like, I need to take that screenshot and make that my screensaver right now. The big problem for me with the battle sequences is I got bored during them. The same techniques were used over and over, the same editing tricks. Maybe the first time some of the tricks were cool to look at and made me go, oh, that's cool. But then it repeats over and over and it doesn't become so cool anymore. Other than that, for me, this movie sadly struggles to capture the heart of the original animated one. A prime example of this is in the scene where Mulan decides to leave her family and go fight. In the original, there's a whole song talking about her emotions during her decision. You see the emotion in her facial expressions and how she's afraid her decision will dishonor the family. It creates a lot of depth in that scene. Here, she picks up the sword and then the scene just ends. What? You don't see much expression on her face. You don't know what she's thinking since it jump cuts to the end of the scene. It relies on us to remember the original to understand what she's thinking, which makes this movie struggle to stand on its own. Yes, this film does have a lot of lessons about the character of Mulan, but it just didn't hit me as hard as I would have hoped for. What made Mulan so memorable for me in the original animated one was, for me, she was just a regular person. We got to see her journey of her becoming a great warrior. We got to see her grow as a character. Here from the beginning, she's like really powerful. So that lessens the impact because you don't see the journey of her becoming really powerful. She's already powerful, so it's hard for a character to grow when she's powerful at the start, and she's also powerful at the end. It makes her character feel quite boring actually, sadly. Turns out the reason she's so powerful is because she has all these midi-chlorians called Qi. Throughout the movie, she's told to hide her super abilities, but eventually decides she's not gonna hide her gift, so she uses all her super things by symbolically taking off all her armor. Sure, that's a good message. Don't hide who you are. Be yourself. That's all nice. But this message is represented through her character, and the way they represent it isn't that great. I do like the message, but to represent that through a character in a movie, she is strong throughout the whole movie, and all that this movie really lets a character do is make her character choose if she's gonna use her strength and powers or not. That isn't as emotionally investing as someone learning to become the best version of themselves. Instead, it just feels like, should I choose to use my powers? Okay, I will. The end. And that's it for a character for me, sadly, which isn't as meaningful as I would have hoped for. This movie also has another character that is going through the same thing about not being accepted, just like Mulan. She was actually one of the two main villains. At least with her, we do get scenes of interaction between her and Mulan. We know a bit about her backstory, but of course later she goes, I agree with you, Mulan. So she technically kind of becomes the good guy. So now you're left with this other villain that doesn't have much interaction with Mulan, which makes for a very weak villain. Overall, I was very disappointed with Mulan. I'm gonna give Mulan a C-.
Soundtrack.
This soundtrack was composed by Harry Gregson Williams. I enjoyed the soundtrack, but I find the soundtrack should have been more diverse, or each song should have had a different cue. Here, most of the songs are combinations of earlier themes to create a track, without each track standing on its own. The cues were still good though. 8 out of 10.